This is ContactTalkRadio.com, consciousness in action, and you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Ping.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio.
Welcome to Life Mastery Radio with Todd Allen and Jackie Bailey, the show that dives into the science of higher consciousness with inspiring topics such as abundance, intention, health, manifestation, love, and transformation. Join Todd, Jackie, and their guests of leading authors, speakers, coaches, and entrepreneurs weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific. Learn to live a peaceful life with intentional mastery. It's all right here with stories and messages to support your well-being and most evocative dreams. Now, here's your hosts, Todd and Jackie.
Hey, it's another groovy day, and there's a couple of reasons for that. First off, it's Life Mastery Radio Day. Jackie and I bring you inspiring guests that are on the cutting edge of your own becoming if you so choose to check it out. So all we're here to do is plant some seeds, and maybe you might grow something. That's one reason. The other reason is when I got up this morning, I decided it was going to be a groovy day. And you can do the same thing to get in the groove as well. Just when you wake up, it's going to be groovy before your feet hit the ground. And I guarantee you, everything that happens, everything that occurs, things might change, things might happen. You can think back and say, hey, I started out with a groovy day. This can turn around just as easily as it happens. So that's what I do, and you can do it too. Try it. You'll like it. Just like Mikey. Mikey liked Life Cereal. As always, I have my co-host with me today, Jackie Bailey, good friend. She's got a big smile on her face.
Hey, everybody.
She's teaching kids how to speak their voice and find that voice. Hi, Jackie. How's it going today?
It's going. Yeah. Our life's mission is to, as you say, empower children to know who they are and understand that what they have to say, the world needs to hear. And then we give them the skills to deliver that message in whatever format they want. And so I don't know if I told you this, but since March, we have filled 50 speaker slots on international summits with our students. They are getting their voices out into the world. So, and
it's really cool because you're being approached from all over the world for your kids to come and speak on these summits about the topics that they're interested in.
Yeah, I've become a broker of sorts. I need to come up with some broker fees. You want my kids? Okay, well, you got to pay some.
But, just the experience. Can you imagine being 13, 14 years old and having a worldwide presence? I
know. You can't even really imagine how much that lifts the soul of a young person. Because in so many ways, and especially during the pandemic, they have been silenced. They really have not had a voice in this whole situation. They were taken out of school. They were sort of stuck at home, away from friends, away from after school activities and sports and things like that. They didn't have any voice in that. And they have politely gone along with it, but we will never know the effects that this has had on them for years to come. And so to be able to feel empowered enough to share your voice with the world is kind of a big deal.
Tell us some of their topics. What are some of their topics?
Well, we've had one student who spoke on a summit, and she talked about how shy she used to be, and she didn't even like to talk with her friends, but her mom insisted that she start taking Taekwondo, which she didn't see had anything to do with anything. And she didn't have any friends that were taking martial arts, but so she went to this class because her mom sort of insisted. And she said, within a couple of weeks, I realized how powerful this is going to make me, not physically, but she talks about how it really changed her spiritual self and gave her this feeling of confidence and empowerment that she'd never had before. And so the title of her presentation is Taekwondo, because she talks about how it not only lifted her ability to feel better about herself, but now she wants to share the importance of that type of experience with the world. So she's one that has spoken on a couple of our summits, and
These
she's
kids,
now a very powerful speaker.
They have such a perception and a view of the world, and you teach them how to tap into that and speak that. And it is just, it's mind-blowing. I mean, you watch these kids and you think these are future leaders. I mean, these, and I think you told me that some of your kids now are going off to college and they have the confidence and the ability to sell themselves, really. I mean, and make a difference.
Well, not only to submit their applications with more powerful information about themselves, but they get there and they already know their value system. They already know what their foundation is. So they're not going to be swayed by whatever happens to be in the wind that day. They're going to stand firm in who they know they are. And gosh, you can't give a greater gift than that to anybody. So there's lots of added benefits to it that I never considered when I just thought
the return on investment,
public speaking skills, right?
Yeah, the return on investment is a lifetime. I mean, if you have a little one and you want to check it out more, go to the speakfeedlead.org website and you can explore and Google Jackie Bailey. You'll find even a plethora of more information. Huh?
I said, I'm kind of everywhere. And actually, there's a website now that has every way to contact me that you could ever imagine. JackieBailey360.com. That'll get you into all the back doors of everywhere I'm at.
There you go. If you have a young one, or if you want some coaching on public speaking, she's the gal to find. So she
work
can
with
help
adults as well. Yeah.
I want to remind our listeners that today's show page is at www.lifemasteryradio.net or .com, whichever one you prefer, and you can go there. And links that we talk about with our guest today will be there on today's show page. There's lots of things you can do. One thing you can do is sign up for our newsletter. Jackie produces a newsletter every week. It highlights who's been on the show, who's coming on the show, and a blog post about the show to entice you a little bit more to go to our YouTube channel and actually watch the show. So there's many, many ways, many avenues. The newsletter comes in your email box. You can check it out, scan it. It's not too long, very concise, clear, lots of pictures, and it's a really cool way to check things out. Maybe it will plant some seeds. While you're there, check out my book. My book is there. It takes you right to Amazon. You can buy it. 6 Keys to Life Mastery. And I just love this book. I know you'll love it too. And after you get done loving it, leave me some feedback.
Give him some love.
Let people know. Sales, right? Jackie's book is there too. It's right there in the background. Oh, she has a copy. Self-centered leadership. Pretty amazing.
I mean, influential, intentional, and exceptional.
Pretty amazing journey. Yeah. She wrote that book, and I thought, if she could do it, I could do it. I did it. I think that's about it for housekeeping. Let's get on with the show. Our guest today is Dr. Pamela Gerali. And she is a visionary pioneer in spiritual growth and transformation, something our society needs today. So check it out. Dr. Pamela Gerali shares life-changing experiences and insights with clarity and humor. She captivates readers and audiences with wisdom and practical guidance from the blueprint. We're going to talk about that, the blueprint for the human spirit. Her holistic model for consciousness and compassionate living. She is an architect for the human spirit. Pamela is a registered nurse with a master's degree in public health and a doctorate in holistic health sciences. She wrote a book. It's a really cool book. I think it's more of a journaling guide or maybe even a group study guide, and it's called The Dance of Ego to Essence. Confessions of a Divine Diva. And in that book, you will learn things like how to live fearlessly from new perspectives, how to reconnect to your true spirit or connect to your true spirit, either way, how to finally build a positive relationship, most important, a positive relationship with yourself, and how to use the blueprint for the human spirit. Pamela, welcome to the show today. Jackie and I are both really excited to have you on. You have such a great message. You're such a great story. Let's get started. Well, yeah. I should say, first of all, welcome to the show. We just love that.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. And it's so nice to be able to be with you no matter where we are, right?
Yeah, you're on the road.
You're kind of on the move, sort of.
On the road, in an RV.
On right the road again.
That's pretty cool. It's so exciting.
So give us a little bit of your background. You were, how do I want to say it? You were kind of brought up sequestered. Pretty and then much. You entered into a world that you had no idea existed.
Exactly. Yes, I was raised in a very small town, a very conservative home and ultra conservative religion, where there were so many thou shalt nots that we thought it was easier to say what we could do than what we weren't supposed to do. But that lifestyle in the country, we were very self-sufficient. It was very quiet and very calm, very peaceful, but it was very limiting and very narrow. I always describe my worldview as about the size of a pea, because we didn't have TV. It was against the beliefs of the church that I was raised in. So I didn't have a clue what was going on. I was in this kind of religious la-la land. And when I left and went to college, I left what I call the unholy trinity of guilt, shame, and fear behind. And was able to have an amazing career in nursing and public health, where I had a series of expanding leadership opportunities with nonprofit health organizations like the American Cancer Society, Prevent Blindness America. I was a national consultant for the Cancer Society. Wow. And worked with 13 states at the time. Then I was a program director for Prevent Blindness America. So I had the opportunity to work with all kinds of people around the country and help preserve vision. And it was while I was at the Center for Creative Leadership that my life took a turn. They gave me the opportunity to attend the Center for Creative Leadership in Greensboro, North Carolina. Have you ever heard of it?
No, I can't say I have.
No.
And I haven't
pretty state though. North Carolina is amazing.
It's beautiful.
I think Jackie, didn't you live there, Jackie?
No. Thought about it at one time.
Well, the Center for Creative Leadership was an amazing experience. And I don't know what they're doing today, but I went there for a week and we did visioning and journaling and met with change partners and artists and actors and did nature walks and all kinds of things that for the first time. And I was so engaged in this process that when I went back to work at Prevent Blindness America, I realized that my job was no longer compatible with my new vision. So I quit. I just quit my job. I left that career behind. I had just gotten married about a year before, and I didn't have to worry about paying the bills. But I decided that I needed to open myself to something different. So I became a spiritual junkie. And I read every book I could get my hands on. I went to every workshop and talked to every teacher I could find, but fearful because I was raised in fear. I was raised with the understanding that unless it was literal Bible, it was wrong. And so I was really afraid that someone was going to lead me down the wrong path.
Right.
So, and I'm sure a lot of other people have that same kind of experience. Now, my upbringing was pretty extreme in comparison to what kids are raised with today, but
they still have that same hunger though, right? People still have that same hunger. I experienced it. I had an insatiable desire to understand spirituality and old ancient traditions. Do you find that that's inherent in just about it's part of us, right?
Exactly. I think it's this whole drive to discover who we are. And part of that is to bring us into alignment with the truth of our being when we finally figure it out. So it's a fun journey. In fact, I wrote and performed a one-woman show called Confessions of a Spiritually Promiscuous Woman. And it follows my evolution through each of these phases. When I was what I called a victim of religious abuse, because it suppressed you, know, and then I became kind of a wild woman, and then a perfectionistic workaholic, and to the point that I became a spiritual junkie and pursued this. But again, I was so fearful. And at one point, I'm like, what to do? Because I tried all these different things from other spiritual teachers and nothing seemed quite right. So I went to bed and I was awakened one morning and started receiving divine downloads. And for 3 to 4 days a week, for 6 months, I would be awakened and this information flowed in. And it was so beautiful that I would get up after about an hour and a half and enter it into my computer. And it started as a simple mind, body, spirit triangle. And it kept growing and growing until it emerged into this beautiful matrix with sacred geometry that I call the blueprint for the human spirit. So this evolved really in harmony with my own personal growth.
And that is fascinating. Did you have experience, especially with I guess what I'm trying to say is these were just thoughts and ideas that seemed to just pop into your mind? Is that the way to describe it?
Yes, it just flowed in, and it came in words or concepts or ideas. And then I would have everyday experiences that brought all this to life, that helped me integrate what I had been learning and what I had been receiving. So it was just a beautiful, beautiful process that I learned to trust. And then, but still I was fearful. And I thought, if I could just have someone like Wayne Dyer or Deepak Chopra, look at my matrix, and I'll show you, it's quite awesome, and it's on my website. If you want more information about it, on my homepage, drpamelagerali.com, you can download a free copy of this booklet about the blueprint and learn more about it and the benefits. But I thought, if I could just have someone, some well-known person
validated
in the spiritual realm say, oh, yes, you're right. Of course, this is ego talking. I would have been thrilled. And then as I said, I know, I just studied about The Secret. I'm going to manifest a guru, So I wrote in my journal, a guru is coming into my life now. And I looked, I thought, oh, this is great. And then this voice, clear as day, said, well, what am I, chopped liver?
There's your sign.
There's the message. I have my own inner teacher, and I just needed to trust it and to embrace what I had learned and live that truth. And as a result, this beautiful guide, holistic guide for conscious, compassionate living emerged, and it became my passion and my purpose. That's why I'm here. I was given the gift of being able to take bits and pieces of things and put them into perfect sequence and harmony. And I know that was a gift. And it also came with sacred geometry. And I was a master at geometry. I didn't do well in all my studies, but geometry was like inborn in me. I just knew it. And it came with the blueprint. And it's like the Merkaba or the Tree of Life. And I had not really studied anything about that when it came to me.
That was my other question was, did you have knowledge of those things before? Because sacred geometry has been around for a very, very long time, and it came from somewhere.
It did.
So where do you think that was? Where do you think it came from, Pamela?
For me, it just came from a higher awareness. We can tap into this divine data bank of
some would call that the
information.
Akashic record. Yeah,
exactly. And when we're open to it, it can flow in, and we can tap into that and use that, for our benefit, for the highest good, share that. And certainly I didn't know when this was evolving, what it was or what shapes meant, or, I didn't understand symbolism or anything at the time. So it was just a truly amazing unfolding. That
do you think that did you do something? Did you study something? Did you, some people have that same experience with the traumatic event, right? Something traumatic hits or happens or to themselves.
Right. An awakening.
And it's an awakening. Did you do anything, or did anything happen, or did it just click?
Well, the blueprint just emerged. I didn't have an illness at that time. Now, before I wrote my book, I had been sick. And when I came to, so that's a whole other story, which we'll get to in a minute. But the blueprint just emerged.
Wow.
And I think that pivotal moment when I went to that Center for Creative Leadership, it opened my mind and my heart. And of course, being married to a man who is like my greatest support and fan, who adores me and supports me in every way possible, having my heart opened helped me. Because I think that was a critical factor, because it's all about love, too.
Well, did the fear ultimately just fade away, or did you have to work on that?
I think there was a moment with all of this happening, and I realized that I was one with God and all that is, and that I was an eternal being. And as soon as I realized that, I lost all fear of dying. When things happen, like yesterday, we were driving and had a blowout of one of the tires on our RV, and that was scary. And sometimes when things like that happen, it's like, oh, Jesus, help me. It's like you go back to those old ways,
Jesus, take the wheel. Jesus, take the wheel.
But you kind of go through this human approach of fearing things, when crises happen. But still, I lost my fear of death. I lost my fear of lack and of all these things.
Being
judgment, yes. And because judgment was a huge part of my childhood.
I think that's one thing that prevents a lot of people from exploring that, right? What other people will think. And
yes.
Yeah, I didn't let it get in my, you can experience an amazing journey in this journey that we've been talking about in searching. And ultimately, Pamela, what is it that you find? You find yourself.
You do. You discover the truth of who you are, not the facade that you present to the world, or the one that you create
programmed
to make you feel better.
That was programmed in you.
Or when we were suppressed as children, our creativity was suppressed because we were told to color in the lines and use the right shade of colors and stuff like that. So I think that, when you lose your fear, and in the blueprint, there's a whole lot more than this one chart. I discovered that for the blueprint has like 5 dimensions: physical, mental, and emotional, intuitive, and spiritual. And the spiritual is like the sum total of all of that. And then there are 5 fields of existence. One is the energetic, which is quantum. One is personal, focusing inward on ourselves. One is outward on our social responsibilities and activities. One's global, where we're a part of the whole. And then the eternal, which is truly what we are, beloved children of God, so to speak. But with each of those 5 dimensions, the physical, mental, emotional, intuitive, and spiritual, I realized that there was a core fear, and that in understanding who we are and why we're here, we can let go of that. When we come to terms with all these things, when we go through the process of releasing all the blocks and all the baggage and all the blinders and whatever that are keeping us from knowing the truth of our being, then we truly can live authentically, compassionately and consciously for the highest good of all that is.
Fascinating. That is so cool. And all that was downloaded. All that just came to you out of the blue.
Just, well, I had read books, and I think there are elements of, like, I would get one nugget maybe from each of the different books I read, but they all came together. So where the blueprint is comprehensive, most people's work is focused on one area, but this brings it all together into this beautiful whole. And it is amazing in part because it isn't about religion. It is about our inner landscape. It's compatible with ancient teachings and new science, Eastern philosophy and Western psychology. So it's relevant to students of all faith. Yeah. This is not about religion at all.
That's how we change the world. And that's a book that is definitely the direction that I think will make a difference.
Yes. And the key thing to changing the world isn't going out there and protesting. It's about changing ourselves, because we have to do the inner work. There will be no world peace until we find inner peace.
That's true.
And so I think the best,
kick that ego out of the way, right? That ego's just gotta go. It's just
you have to learn how to work with it, so
well, you can't survive without it. But once my whole world changed, Pamela, when I found the throttle on my ego. And what helped me realize that was I was taught, or I was told, or I picked it up somewhere, is that the ego actually prevents God from flowing through us, right? So it's like this block right at our heart, and it prevents it from flowing through us. And once we understand that and learn to put a throttle on it, everything opens up.
Yes. And you're right. We have to learn how to use it for the greater good. Our personality, our, what we have discovered, what our talents are, but we do it for a higher purpose. We share those for a higher purpose, for the highest good, instead of for our own personal gain and for kudos and whatever. So everything changes, I think, when we discover who we are, discover our divine blueprint, and bring all aspects of our being into alignment with the truth, with essence, and with that divine aspect of our being. We were made in the image and likeness of God. And we keep forgetting that. In fact, there's a couple of references in the Bible that says, ye are gods. And it's like, whoa, can I even say that without it being ego?
Right.
Well, Pamela, now that you've had this great awakening, do you now look back at your childhood and feel that it was still spiritually abusive or religiously abusive? Or can you see that there were parts of truth there, and that there was maybe a foundation being laid for you to be able to do what you're doing now? That's one part of my question. The other part is, what do your parents think about what you're doing?
Well, I never really talked to my parents about it. My father has passed, but I made my mother watch my show. And it talks about my childhood. In fact, I dressed up like this little girl with long pigtails. And
Oh, your one-man show or your one-woman show?
My one-woman show, yes. Confessions of a Spiritually Promiscuous Woman. You can watch that on my About page. And it's everybody's story. It's the heroine's journey. It's everybody's story. How we go from, in search of ourselves. And but when I look back now, I remember the day that I read a book by Joan Borisenko, and she mentioned religious abuse.
Joan.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
And when I read that, I just burst into tears because I realized, what had happened to me. But I am grateful because without that extreme childhood, I probably wouldn't have left it behind and gone in search of something else. And in the process and in my show, I talk about how everything came full circle because now I understand those teachings with new light. Instead of interpreting them literally, I can see, the symbolism in it and gain greater understanding and knowledge and awareness as a result of that. So everything has come full circle. And I don't have trouble. I used to choke every time I tried to say Jesus, because it was because I felt, I almost threw the baby Jesus out with the religious bathwater, but it was a gift. And everything, I think that's another thing that we learn in our process of awakening. We see things with new eyes. And everything can be perceived as a gift because every challenge is an opportunity to learn and grow. And when we view life that way, then everything becomes a positive instead of a negative.
Paradigm shift.
Yes, exactly.
You're not the only one in your family, though, because I think I heard you say, during the tumultuous times, or let's just say the blender times when you felt like you were in a blender, you actually went to your sister who was studying spiritual principles and asked her for guidance. I
did. And before that, she had studied spirituality and healing modalities for the longest time and never, ever talked with me about it. Because she knew I wasn't ready to hear it. And I would just dismiss everything she said because I was in this very left brain work, perfectionistic, workaholic kind of mode. And when I went to that workshop and did visioning and journaling, and it was such a powerful thing, I didn't know what to do. So I asked her, knowing that she had been studying, but not anything specific. And I says, what should I read? Because I was fearful. And she says, oh, the very first book, she says, well, try this. The Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman. This is going way back, of course. And that was the first book I read and it appealed to me. And so I kept doing that. And that's how I became kind of an insatiable spiritual junkie, so to speak. But that one sister, I'm one of 5. And she has been like we're soul twins, we kind of do things together. But she helped get me started and understand some things. And of course, I've continued to grow and learn and realized all this beautiful information and put it all together into the matrix and the blueprint for the human spirit. So her support was really valuable.
That's really
valuable to me. Yes.
And your book, Pamela, is laid out in 40 chapters, I believe.
Yes.
And it's like day 1, day 2, day 3, and so forth.
Yes.
It's set up that way so that the reader can take this 40-day journey, improving in particular areas each day. Is that how you figured it out?
It started as, it didn't start as a book. It started as something that I was almost challenged. I had viral thyroiditis after having bronchitis, and my thyroid hormones went way high, and I was shaking and crying and all this weird stuff associated with hyperthyroid. I didn't have like Graves' disease, but it was a temporary thing. But when I recovered from that, after being flatlined basically for 6 months and unable to do anything, I said, okay, I don't know where to start. What would you like me to do now? The higher powers that be, I asked, and it was like, get up early and journal confessions for 40 days.
Mm.
And I thought, really? I've been a spiritual teacher for quite a while here, and I've learned a lot and I've let go of a lot, but okay, if that's what you want me to do. So the very first day I went to my office, not knowing what to expect, lit a candle just as a focal point, and sat in silence for about 3 minutes. And this word came to me, discipline. And I was like, are you kidding? I can't stand the idea of anybody telling me what to do or how to do it. And I thought, well, there's my first confession. And in my childhood, of course, discipline was a big thing because our parents with discipline were trying to keep us from going to hell in a handbasket, so to speak. And they thought they had to discipline us harshly in order to keep us on the straight and narrow. So I did not get along well with that concept. But as I wrote, I picked up my journal and I just started writing. And it was like all of my experiences and what I'd learned just flew onto the page. It was almost like automatic writing. And as I wrote in my journal then how discipline becomes self-discipline, where instead of others telling us what to do, that we can discipline ourselves. And that when we learn how to say no to one thing, we can say yes to something better. Mm-hmm. And in the process, then we choose our direction. So discipline becomes direction and moves us forward. And I thought, oh, wow, this is cool, So then the next day, scattered. And so I'm like scattered because I'm hyperactive and, creative people are out here, when you have one idea and then you have another idea and it's hard to stay focused and stay on the straight and narrow, so to speak. And so I wrote about how I became focused in the process. Every single day, a new word popped in. And I realized that these words and concepts are universal. And then when I shared my writings with a couple of friends, they said, oh, you have to share this, because when you are so brutally honest and bare your soul with radical honesty, I could do the same. And in doing that, it freed me. In fact, as I was going through this 40-day process, and 40, by the way, the number 40 represents rebirth, which is beautiful. And that's exactly what we are doing. And in the process, every day, I would free my soul of all this stuff from the past. I wrote about things that I had never told anybody about, but it just emerged, it bubbled to the surface, and I got it out of my system to the point where by halfway through, I was flying. I was almost euphoric because I was so free, letting go of all that baggage and those blocks. And it was such an amazing process that I did share it in this book, The Dance of Ego and Essence, Confessions of a Divine Diva. And I also have a companion journal, which walks people through a holistic process and includes meditations that came to me on the same day as I wrote my journal. And I have had a chance to record those with this gifted artist, musician from Naples, Stu Shelton. He's a jazz musician and a new age musician, and he created music while I read the meditations.
Wow.
And I'll tell you, it is really, really something.
And those are on
But
your website, right? People can
you
get
can
those.
access that, yes, on my website. And drpamelagerali.com. But this whole process was so freeing that I just wish everybody would engage in their own deep soul cleanse.
You almost want to grab people and just shake them and say, come on, man, get with the party.
Look what could happen, look how free you could be. And it was freeing because you were talking about children and going back to this state of innocence that is so perfect for what we are trying to accomplish. It's the rebirth, so to speak, and how we become like children. And I had another I don't know how much time we have, but I had another really interesting experience that happened to me that transformed the blueprint from an interesting intellectual exercise into a full experiential, integrative type thing.
Tell us about it.
I was meditating, and I'm not good at it because I'm so hyper, but I was sitting on my lanai and I went into an altered state very quickly. In an hour and a half, I experienced 15 past lives.
Wow.
A dramatic event in the lives of 15 different people. There were men, women, and children from all walks of life, and they spanned the ages from, say, ancient Mayan times to more recent 1900s. And each one of them, some of them were victims, horribly abused. And I felt this, I experienced this. And some, use their egos to make things happen, and most of them failed. And then there were those who were consciously creating beauty and harmony in the world, in their lives, and sharing that with other people. And when I came to, first of all, I didn't realize that. I just had these experiences that were so intensely traumatic, I could hardly move. I could hardly breathe. But I wrote a list of them in my journal. I was on my way to church that day. I wrote a list of them, and I went to church, and my friend said, "What happened to you?" And I'm like, "Ooh, I could hardly talk about it." She says, "Go home and write it down." And I did. And as I wrote it down, I analyzed it a little bit, because that's kind of one of my things, and realized that there was one character or one past life in each of the primary boxes of the blueprint matrix.
Wow.
And each one of them reflected a core shift in consciousness. And each one of them reflected an aspect of my life today.
Wow.
It wasn't just about the past, it's about today. So when people talk about past lives, the only relevance is that if we can make sense of it in our personal life today,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then later that week, I visited a friend who was a therapist, and I told her I had this document, with this chart. And I'm like, and she says, "Well, would you like to do a regression?" And I'm like, with all of this, I'll never, figure it all out, but why not? What's one more? And she guided me back in time. And I was a child at the feet of Jesus when he said, "Let the children come to me, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven."
Wow.
And that particular archetype or past life is about the eternal realm of being and how we go back to the innocent, joyful, playful, loving, open children. And that is how all of those experiences just emerged into this beautiful, beautiful whole that showed me firsthand what the blueprint really means and how it impacts us on a personal level.
Yeah.
So,
Amazing.
I mean, everything changed with that. So I've had some amazing experiences.
Well, the blueprint doesn't give us just a snapshot of what life really is or who we really are, but it's there to help us through a progressive state of more and more spirituality. Is that what
Yes.
purpose is?
I think so, because it helps us go from being victims where things happen to us beyond our control to where we make things happen by our own ego effort to where we become vessels through which God manifests or whatever, until we can show up as these beloved children of God, as the hands and the heart and the voice of God. That's why we're here. So it shows how that all happens. And each one of the cells of the matrix has so many features, which shows also how we can release all the fear and the guilt and shame, that unholy trinity, so that we can bring all aspects of our being into alignment with that truth, with the essence of our being, with that beloved child of God, so to speak. And that, to me, is what the blueprint helps. It appeals, the chart, of course, appeals to the left brain, so we can see things logically and rationally. And then the experience of some things like going through this 40-day soul cleansing process can help us let go of stuff so we really can get down to the essence of our being.
Fascinating.
Sounds to me like it also serves to really show us the connection that we all have to everyone who's lived.
Exactly.
Everyone who lives today and everyone who's still to come, right? That there is this eternal connection, and that we can look back at this experience you had and these particular individuals who had experienced perhaps really awful hardships and challenges in life. And yet their experience is something we build on.
Yes.
There's a purpose to their experience, no matter how horrific it might be, there's a purpose to it. And therefore there's a purpose to our experience,
Exactly.
no matter what challenges we face.
Exactly. We transform them into positives, because those experiences are the incentive for us to shift. People may have like a near-death experience. I haven't had one of those. I've had all these spiritually transforming experiences. Another one was a divine download where I received in the middle of the night, almost like just flowed over me, this awareness that every motion and every position and every image or whatever was relevant. And I realized that I had intuitive healing abilities, and it just kind of flowed over me. And that evolved too, to the point now where I work with people on a one-to-one basis or as a small group on Zoom or face-to-face, and how I become like a mirror and reflect back to them exactly what their higher self wants them to become aware of in this moment. I mean, we all know somewhere what we're supposed to focus on, or what we're supposed to learn, or whatever. We have this inner knowing, but sometimes somebody needs to show us. And so I become like a mirror, and I speak in first person, which is interesting because we are one, right?
Right.
And my body goes into motion. I close my eyes in the process because I want to block out stuff so I don't jump to conclusions or whatever. But I usually have my eyes closed, and my body goes into motion and will reflect through positions and motions and imagery exactly what this individual might need to know, and the shift. And there's always a shift in perception, which is what healing is. And so it's a beautiful gift that helps us focus on what is most important and provide some clarity, and helps individuals to release more blocks and blunders and baggage so we can live in harmony too. So those are very powerful experiences that I love doing it, because when I help others, I am healed more myself too, because we are one. It's such a beautiful gift. I call them spiritual blueprinting because it is still all based on the blueprint. And when something pops up, we can see kind of where it is on this beautiful chart, so to make sense of it and help them get clarity. So that's a gift. I have just so I'm filled with joy to be able to share.
Oh my goodness, ladies, we only have about 5 minutes left. And I guess ultimately to put a cherry on top of all this great dessert, because it really is, what can people expect in their lives? What maybe testimonials have you gotten from people or something? What can people expect when they start working with the blueprint?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, I think people gain a greater insight than they have ever had about themselves. And I do focus on the individual as someone who can discover who they are, but then discover their divine gifts and share them with others so we can all live more compassionately and more consciously and discover their higher purpose. You know, I think we're all here. Our inner purpose is discover who we are and bring our thoughts, behaviors, and feelings into alignment with that truth of our being, with essence. But then we want to share. There's gifts that we have received that we can enhance and share with others in so many ways. You both have such gifts that you give, through your writings, through working with children in your groups, and Todd with, how you bring people together and help plant seeds. I mean, that's your gift. And for that, we are truly grateful. So others, through the blueprint work and through spiritual blueprinting healings, can discover more about who they are and how they can live more purposefully, more authentically, in harmony with their truth. So it's a process. And in the process,
Pamela, does it take a lot of effort?
Well, I certainly went through a lot of effort, but I think, I believe at some point that all we have to do is see things differently.
Right.
We aren't here to change who we are. We're here to discover the truth.
And we're not here to be victims either, right? We're not here to be victims.
No. And that's such a part of our culture. So part of this process eliminates victimhood, because things, that spiritual process where things happen to us, things happen by us, things happen through us or with us, to showing up as the hands and the heart and the voice of God. That is the process that we get to. But the process also requires that we release all these beliefs and things that have held us back, that we see things with new eyes. And in the process, then we are free to be all that we are.
Fascinating. Pamela, I want to thank you for coming on the show today. You are a dreamboat. You have such a great message, and I think that it has the potential, and it will make a difference in our world and plant some really cool seeds in people so that they can grow into an oak tree. Right?
Yes, exactly. So this process, this 40-day process, Dance of Ego in Essence of the Companion Journal, is a gift that can help everybody. And
gift that keeps on giving.
Yes.
Does the journal come with the purchase of the book, or is it separate?
They're separate, but you can get them both online, or you can get it as a gift set or whatever. And so it's on my products on my website. DrPamelaGerali.com.
So much. And namaste, my friend.
Namaste.
And I hope you'll come back.
I would love to.
I hope you'll come back, because there is so much more to talk about.
So much. Blessings.
That's about all we have time for today. I hope you enjoyed the show. My hope is too, you will tell a friend about the show. This really cool show with Todd and Jackie. Then they have some amazing guests and they talk about some amazing things. And makes me want to explore some amazing things about myself. So check it out. Go to our YouTube channel. Lastly, well, check out Dr. Pamela's website and look for yourself. Check it out. It's good stuff. Lastly, please, please, please make it a great day, because it is all about choice. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you for tuning in to Life Mastery Radio. Join Todd Allen and Jackie Bailey and their guests of leading authors, speakers, coaches, and entrepreneurs weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific. Learn to live a peaceful life with intentional mastery through stories and messages to support your well-being and most evocative dreams. Visit their website, www.lifemasteryradio.com. Join their mailing list and be notified about upcoming guests. That's lifemasteryradio.com.